We would like to draw everyone's attention to this side strip. We would like to draw everyone's attention to this side strip. It was noted by a Swiss textile expert that this right here is a 1st century style stitching pattern. This is her exact quote. "There have been attempts to date the shroud, but the style of sewing is the biggest clue. It belongs firmly to a style seen in the 1st century AD or before. But this side strip starts here and it goes from one end of the cloth to the other, all the way down 14 feet. It's an uneven cut. At some points, it'll be 2 inches from here to here. At other points, it will be 3 inches. But it appears to be a side strip that was cut in haste. That said, we're going to fold this cloth over the body and show you why they cut this off. And they cut it off when? During the burial. So let's do that right now. I'm going to grab this end. Okay, I have now folded the cloth over the body. How are they going to secure this body? They are going to have to put strips around the shroud to hold the body in. The body of Jesus was not put in the tomb like that. They needed a strip of linen to wrap around the shroud, so they cut it. Cut it with a knife and just cut right along this edge, a strip like this. That's one of the linen strips they used to wrap around the shroud. Just using common sense, a common sense approach to how this body would be wrapped would be like that. So this is a close approximation to how the body of Jesus would have been wrapped. The linen clothes, as John called them, the linen grave clothes of Jesus. In the Gospel of John, he mentions, and then they wound the body in the linen clothes. He's talking about when they wound this strip around the shroud to hold the body in. As we could see, Jesus was buried in a long sheet of linen, and after the cloth was folded over the body, strips of linen were used to hold the body in the shroud. So a Jewish burial does require strips of linen. Strips of linen would have also been used to go around the hands and feet. But we get the basic idea. And as we can see, the one strip of linen will go around the chin and then to the middle of the body and to the feet. Just that one 14-foot strip. While we have this opportunity, and the body of Jesus is wrapped in this long sheet of fine linen, as it was nearly 2,000 years ago. And the difference is the body of Jesus was not lying flat. The knees were raised and the upper torso was leaning forward at an angle exactly as you would see in a photo of the Garden Tomb, like the one we're looking at right now, that angled board, that angled headboard. There is a cloth that is mentioned in the Gospel of John 20 verse 7. And the napkin that was about his head was not lying with the linen clothes, the grave clothes. The shroud of Turin, were the grave clothes of Jesus, was not lying with the linen clothes, but was wrapped together, folded together in a place by itself. What John was referring to was this cloth that was put around the head of Jesus while he was on the cross and was removed during the burial. And this cloth is just covered in blood and fluid from the lungs. So when they removed it from Jesus, when they removed this cloth from his head, it was just covered in blood like this. And then they folded it They folded it together, and when they did that, the bloodstains made an impression on the other side. As you can see, these bloodstains on this side are a mirror image because this cloth was just like John said it was. It was folded together in a place by itself. In a previous video, we calculated the odds of the blood on the Shroud of Turin and the headcloth as not being from Jesus was a 1 in 4 billion chance. We did this in the same way that DNA evidence determines the odds of probability and chance of something being a coincidence. But the pure math of this case, of the Shroud of Turin case file, simply gives us the bottom line number. We calculated the math on 4 different match points between the shroud and the headcloth, both with type AB blood, both with myrrh and aloes, both with pollens from a thorn plant from Jerusalem, and both with a rare calcite called travertine aragonite. And the way we did the math, and we purposely downplayed the numbers, we came up with a 1 in 4 billion chance. After the video was posted, someone gave this same information to ChatGPT to see how they would calculate the math, and they came up with the exact same number, a 1 in 4 billion chance. A very improbable event in itself. But ChatGPT stated, the likelihood that the Shroud of Turin does not belong to Jesus based on current evidence and scientific studies is approximately 1 in 4 billion. And again, these are the variables that we use to determine the math. Both the shroud and the headcloth both have type AB blood. They both contain myrrh and aloes. They both contain pollens from a thorn plant from Jerusalem, and they both contain a rare calcite called travertine aragonite. ChatGPT states, to determine the most accurate odds that the Shroud of Turin is not related to Jesus of Nazareth, we need to be cautious in our assumptions, base estimates on available scientific evidence, and factor in uncertainties. Evidence and probabilities, type AB blood. Modern global prevalence, 4%. Given that this blood type is not exceedingly rare in this region, probability is a 1 in 8 chance. We calculated this at 1 in 20. Number 2, presence of myrrh and aloes. Spices in Jewish burial practices were common, but myrrh and aloes together are specifically mentioned in John 19:39 through 40. These were expensive and likely reserved for prominent or wealthy individuals. While plausible in other high-status burials, it's not the norm. Probability 1 in 50. We calculated this at 1 in 100. Number 3, pollens from plants specific to Jerusalem springtime have been identified on the shroud. This narrows its geographical and seasonal origin. The likelihood of these pollens occurring outside of Jerusalem or being artificially added is very low. Probability 1 in 1,000. We calculated this at 1 in 500. Number 4, rare calcite from the Damascus Gate. The travertine aragonite found on the shroud is geologically specific to tombs near the Damascus Gate in Jerusalem. Chance of this mineral being found on the cloth from a different location, probability 1 in 10,000. We calculated this at 1 in 200. Combined probability. If we assume independence between these factors, though slight interdependence could exist, the odds of all these features coinciding randomly on a cloth not associated with Jesus are 1 in 40 billion chance. Adjustments for overlapping evidence, interdependence. Certain evidence, like the calcite and pollen, both point to Jerusalem and may slightly overlap in their contribution to the geographical identification. To account for this, we adjust the result conservatively by a factor of 10 to prevent overestimation. Adjusted odds, 1 in 4 billion chance. The likelihood that the Shroud of Turin does not belong to Jesus based on current evidence and scientific studies is approximately 1 in 4 billion. This reflects a convergence of highly specific and rare factors.
Our conclusion was the same, exactly the same as ChatGPT, 1 in 4 billion chance, even though in every match point, our calculated odds were different. Even though we both used completely different numbers and completely different ways of arriving at the odds of probability and chance, we both arrived at the same figure. The chance of that being coincidental in itself is extremely improbable.
Think this over carefully. A 1 in 4 billion chance. There's a 1 in 4 billion chance that these match points between the Shroud of Turin and the headcloth are coincidental. That it's all just an incredible coincidence. Well, the Mass says there's a 99.9% chance that it's not coincidental, that these are not coincidental matches, that this is the blood of Jesus. And to bet against that, to bet against those odds, that person would stand a 99.9% chance of being wrong. The consequences of being wrong, in this case, potentially involve being separated from light for all eternity. An extremely serious consequence. To bet against odds of 1 in 4 billion chance and go with the underdog bet, basically a person saying, you know, there's a 1 in 4 billion chance that I'm right, but I'm gonna gamble with eternity on that one. I'm gonna gamble with all eternity at stake here and go with the extreme underdog bet on that. I like my odds in this. I feel confident with the bet that I placed. Think anyone could say that? I don't think so. No intelligent person of sound mind would ever bet against those odds. We ask that you carefully consider the math evidence before doing that, before dismissing Jesus as being the risen Messiah. The linen on the Shroud of Turin is made up of carbon atoms, single electron bond carbon atoms. This simply means there are only one pair of electrons holding the atoms together, 2 electrons. However, where there is coloring on the shroud, the single electron bonds have been changed to double bonds, 2 pairs of electrons holding the atoms together. When this change is made
from single bonds to double bonds, this also changes the arrangement of the electrons on the outer shell of the atoms. The way the electrons are arranged on the outer shell of the atoms determines the color that we see. We see the single electron bond arrangement as being a white color, and we see the double bond arrangement as being a gold or a sepia color. So the creator of the shroud image did not use paint to color the linen, but changed the arrangement of the electron bonding of the carbon atoms. To be able to create this change in the electron bonding, the single electron bond has to be broken first before they can become double. The linen on the Shroud of Turin is made up of carbon atoms, single electron bond carbon atoms. This simply means there are only one pair of electrons holding the atoms together, 2 electrons. However, where there is coloring on the shroud, the single electron bonds have been changed to double bonds, 2 pairs of electrons holding the atoms together. When this change is made from single bonds to double bonds, this also changes the arrangement of the electrons on the outer shell of the atoms. The way the electrons are arranged on the outer shell of the atoms determines the color that we see. We see the single electron bond arrangement as being a white color, and we see the double bond arrangement as being a gold or a sepia color. So the creator of the shroud image did not use paint to color the linen, but changed the arrangement of the electron bonding of the carbon atoms. To be able to create this change in the electron bonding, the single electron bond has to be broken first before they can become double bonds. This is a chemical bond that is very difficult to break. In a comparison analogy, to break this bond would be like having to use a sledgehammer to break open the lock of a safe. No skeptic image theory or replica has ever changed the electron bonding of the carbon atoms in linen to create coloring. Simply stated, it means their theories are wrong. But basically, there are only 5 suspects that could potentially create this change in the electron bonding, and they are always high intensity and high energy requirements. Number 1, intense UV radiation, much more intense than just regular sunlight. Number 2, strong acids like sulfuric acid. Number 3, heating the linen to over 700 degrees in an oxygen-free environment. Number 4, strong propane gas or butane gas exposure. Number 5, high energy ozone exposure. Ozone is a byproduct of lightning. Only 5 suspects in our lineup, and one of these is responsible for creating the image on the shroud. However, every one of these suspects would destroy the linen and reduce the shroud to ashes and or be extremely damaged. The only way we have successfully changed single bonds to double bonds in a piece of linen was by firing high-intensity UV laser light at a linen fibril for less than 1/40 of a second. It's true that high-intensity UV radiation would reduce the shroud to ashes. However, when this high-intensity UV radiation makes contact with the linen for less than 1/1000th of a second, it successfully replicates the shroud coloring process, where no other image process does. So the only suspect who cannot be eliminated as being responsible for creating the shroud image is the intense UV radiation suspect. The great detective Sherlock Holmes stated, "When all suspects have been eliminated and only one suspect is left standing, no matter how absurd or impossible it may seem, that last remaining suspect must be the one who is responsible for the coloring process on the shroud. And that last remaining suspect is the UV radiation suspect." This is a single witness display that eliminates all skeptic image theories as being possible, and is extremely compelling evidence the image process on the shroud was created by a higher power intelligence / God. Please share this video. We need to get this information out to the public, to people in all 220 countries in the world. They deserve to know the truth.